Good morning. I have a very special guest here today. It's Jim Gray, and he has previously the mayor of Lexington for 8 years, but now he's serving as the secretary of the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. But most recently, the governor has appointed him a new role as director of vaccine distribution. So we're very glad that he took the opportunity to meet with us to talk about vaccination distribution here in Frankfort and Kentucky. So welcome so much, Secretary Gray.
Hey, Cathy, it's great to be with you. Great to be with you today.
Yes. Again, we're glad you took the time to be with us. So just right out of the gate, I want to talk about your new role as director of vaccine distribution and what that means and why that role is important and the importance of an organized state distribution process.
Well, Cathy, first off, thanks for inviting me. And you said right out of the gate, and I'm going to say right out of the gate, I want to say that I was really grateful and thankful and privileged and honored that the governor would ask me to support this project and to actually come in a sense, just as bringing some reinforcements into an already high performing team led by the governor, Dr. Stack. I tell you, I think we've got the best medical leadership in the country with Stephen Stack. I mean, he is he is remarkable in every respect. And so I'm just privileged to be able to help out in this project. And let me dial back a little bit. Let's remind ourselves, sometimes the last thing a fish can describe is water, but where have we been? Well, it was just a little over 10 months ago that the first case of COVID was diagnosed in Kentucky. And then late November, early December was when Pfizer and Moderna, when their vaccines were actually released. And that represented a modern medical miracle that a vaccine was developed. Vaccines were developed in that length of time, that short a period of time. So that release in early December represents just about 8 weeks ago now, since the release occurred. And then there was a ramp up time, of course, in order to get the vaccines into distribution, get that distribution chain and channel system up and running efficiently. And then we were able to actually start vaccinations in Kentucky. Now, where are we today? Well, where we are today is we just crossed this week 450,000 vaccinations.
Wow.
That represents 10% of the population. If we didn't have the rough weather we were having today and yesterday, we would very likely have crossed 500,000. And what does that represent? Well, let's put it in perspective with the rest of the country and with our neighboring states. We're actually doing better as a percentage of the population. We're over 10% of our population now has been vaccinated the first time, over 10%. And how is that compared to our neighboring states? Well, it's better than all of our neighboring states, with the exception of West Virginia and Virginia. And West Virginia has been noted as doing really well right out of the gate. But West Virginia, smaller state, instead of 4.5 million population, they're 1.7 million. They're at about 12% of their population having been vaccinated, and we're just over 10%. So, that 2% represents a really modest number. And in terms of overall dosages, we're actually much further ahead. Now, that's not to say that we want to declare victory prematurely at all. We're all about continuous improvement. And so I'll come to some of the numbers in terms of the vaccine sites and the providers that we have on board shortly. But I want to give you a chance for another question.
Yeah, well, you're just hitting them as I have them.
Okay.
So again, we've seen throughout the nation the talk about demand being greater than supply. So when should we expect to see that reverse here in Kentucky?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because the three most important words for the last 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks since I've been on board in the project, I've heard Dr. Stack say, we hear the governor say, three most important words are supply, supply, supply. If we had the supply, we have the distribution system. We have the providers actually in place and eligible. What have we got today? Well, when we total the four distribution channels, that is the state channel, the federal government channel to long-term care, the DOD and the Veterans Administration, and then just recently, the Biden administration announced the federal pharmacy program. Okay, those are the four channels. And when we take all of those, the governor just announced yesterday, a little over 100 and, let's see, if I do my math right, we're a bit over 120 between the pharmacies, between the Walgreens and the independents. And all together then, including the sites that have been stood up by the state, the Kroger sites, the hospitals, the regional centers, and our health departments across the state, 61, we are at just over 250, 255 sites. Now that changes almost by the day. And the governor has just announced, of course, yesterday, these additional sites that we're standing up. So
Yeah.
altogether, and this has occurred in literally the movement from the hospitals, which were providing the vaccine to the healthcare workers and to the K-12. You know, I'm smiling because it's a meaningful engagement, of course,
Right.
but it's so serious, and so many people in our state, so many of our citizens want the vaccine. And what we have found too, Cathy, is that some who were reluctant or hesitant to take the vaccine, now they've seen their friends and neighbors and perhaps family take the vaccine.
Right.
And they're more likely now, they're more interested in it. So
Yeah.
we're seeing some that are actually wanting to come back and get the vaccine when they were offered it, let's say in the long-term care program.
Oh, yeah.
So because actually we were seeing a pretty modest amount of folks actually taking the vaccine. Staff, it was only about 50% of staff. Now, some of those are coming back and saying that they want the vaccine. And that's, of course, in the federal program, which was managed at the local level by Walgreens and CVS.
So you mentioned the governor has recently named some regional vaccination centers. So I did want to make sure that our viewers knew about the one that has been named here in Frankfort. It's great news for our community, and it will be located at 669 Chamberlain Avenue, and that's in Prevention Park. So we will be talking more about that on the show and in the future, and getting that information out as far as how you can get registered. So that's great news for our community, and we, thank the governor for making sure that we had that opportunity here. So moving on, let's talk about, we've been doing this. Again, you said we've only had the vaccination available for a short period of time, and how much we've gotten done during that short period of time. But do we have any idea of how long we're going to be doing this and giving the vaccinations? Because we're still in tier 1A and 1B.
Right. We're focused. Yeah, we're focused on 1B and priority given for those over 70. And in looking at the numbers, Cathy, Kentucky represents about 1.3% of the national population. So our allocation is fundamentally based on population. And how does that translate? Well, as little as 3 weeks ago, we were getting 55,000 vaccines a week. Okay. We had the capacity for 250,000 vaccines a week.
Okay.
We definitely have that capacity today.
Right.
Okay? That has been dialed up, fortunately, in the last 2 weeks. We are now up to 73,000. And then if you take the federal pharmacy program, That's an additional 13,000. So that takes us up to 86,000. And I've been saying that if we do the math on this, and let's say we were able to go, well, let's look at it this way. We've got about 500,000 unique vaccinations behind us now, the first dose, right? 500,000. Our targeted population after those who are vaccine hesitant, and after discounting our population for those under 16, the targeted population is roughly 2.5 million. So we've got now 500,000 having been vaccinated shortly. We'll right at 500,000, round numbers, okay? If we dial that 83,000 a week up to, let's say, Pfizer says that they're going to as much as double their production and accelerate it, and Johnson & Johnson could come out, and Moderna's increasing its efficiency. So let's say we take that 80,000 up to 120,000, which is conservative, I think, that we'll be getting 120,000 doses before too long. Well, 4 times 120, I think I'm doing my math right. Isn't that 480? So it's really close. It's really close to 500,000 a month. All right. So if you're trying to hit 2.2 million to 2.5 million, then that tells you that it arguably perhaps could be a much shorter period of time to achieve that. Now, the problem is going to be, in my view, the next challenge is going to be that we're going to have more supply than we have demand, and folks are going to become less inclined perhaps to get the vaccine, because as our incident rate declines, as our positivity rate declines, the number of cases declines, folks may become a little complacent and say, well, do I really need that? No, you really need it. You really, really, really need it. So that's putting some of these numbers together that tells me that when Dr. Fauci has said spring, early summer, in order to get to herd immunity, that's roughly 70-75% of the population. Well, that could get us there. That could get us there pretty quickly. I've been saying that this is the storm before the calm, not the calm before the storm. It's the storm before the calm. Everyone that wants the vaccine wants it, and they want it tomorrow. And we understand that. And that's why some of our goals have been, not some of our goals have been in standing up the high volume vaccination centers. It's been focus on population density, because that gets us to herd immunity faster. Focus on equity, those who are most vulnerable, communities of color, those who are most likely to get the disease, and then throughput, vaccination throughput, and then the drive time, that no one has to drive more than one county away to get a vaccine.
I like that, because I know a lot of people right now who are 70 or older that aren't sure how they're going to get to where they need to be to get a vaccine.
As we really accelerate this focus on those who are most vulnerable, those who are homebound, perhaps less inclined, this is where the value of our local health departments really comes into play, because they know the communities so well.
Yes.
And that's where our citizens are often most likely to call, to check things out, to try to get an appointment. And this is why a third of our vaccinations today are going to our 61 local and regional health departments.
Well, that's awesome. And we brag on our health department here in Franklin County all the time. We work with them, we partner with them to get information out, and they have just done a fabulous job. And so again, I want to give them kudos. And
there you go. You should. Hey, I've learned so much in the last 3.5 weeks. But one of the things I've learned without any question is the capabilities and the passion and the commitment of our local health departments. Just as a quick anecdotal story, our Christian County in Hopkinsville when they saw that they were going to be closed down need to close down because of the weather on Thursday and perhaps on Friday, they accelerated their appointments, and they got, I believe the number was, they accelerated 700 appointments in Hopkinsville and Christian County to Wednesday. And
Wow.
just shows that commitment at that level.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are
Yeah.
the people who are here in each of their communities. They know the people in their community, and they know how important this effort is in their community,
Right.
and then inevitably statewide. So
Yeah.
I know that we're glad that you're in charge of the effort, and that, ensuring that everyone has an opportunity and access to the vaccination, because that's what we need to get through this. And do you have any final thoughts? Anything you
Well,
want to
I was
say?
just going to say, when you use that word in charge, that's a stretch, because I said from the beginning, I'm here to reinforce and to perhaps add bandwidth to those who are already doing such a remarkable job. And I keep saying Dr. Stack and his team at the Department of Health, the Cabinet for Family, CHFS, Cabinet for Health and Family Services. Yes. And Eric Friedlander, big part of the team, and their staff. It's a very robust staff, and I just want to praise everyone.
Again, we appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and give us some insight on how things are going. So thank you so very much.
Thanks to be with you, Cathy.